YouTube, thanks for checking out The Film Geek. Today I'm talking about my 5 favorite Hollywood Golden Era movies. The rules of this list are simple. The 5 movies that I have chosen do not include any of the spotlight films that I covered this week, and all of them fall within what is considered to be the golden era of Hollywood between the times of 1915 and 1963. So let's get things started with number 5, which is 1949's White Heat. White Heat is a film noir film that was directed by Raoul Walsh and is starring James Cagney. White Heat is a story of a psychopathic criminal with a mother complex, makes a daring break from prison and leads his old gang in a criminal plant payroll heist. Now, I was going to put the Maltese Falcon on here. In fact, I really considered putting the Maltese Falcon in its place. But I kind of feel like that movie gets talked about a lot, and I don't feel like White Heat gets mentioned as much as it should. And this movie is really good. If you're a fan of any kind of crime capers, especially the kind of crime capers that you root for the villain, then you're really going to like this movie. The storyline in this movie is very complex, and I really feel like this film led to a lot of the modern crime capers that we have today. Coming in at number 4 is 1948's The Treasure of Sierra Madre. Directed by James Huston and starring Humphrey Bogart, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre is about 2 Americans searching for work in Mexico who convince an old prospector to help them mine gold in the Sierra Madre Mountains. This is the movie that has this famous line in it.
If you're the police, where are your badges?
Badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
The Treasure of Sierra Madre tells the story of basically human greed. You have these 3 characters who start mining for gold and really start finding a lot more gold than they thought they were going to. And then things just start to unravel. The 3 of them start turning against each other. More players kind of get in the way, and there's a bunch of bandits who show up and a shootout ensues. This movie is a slow burn, yes, but the payoff in the end is absolutely worth the time. Not that this is a long movie, but it is definitely one that kind of takes a little while to get where it's going, but trust me, once it gets there, you're gonna like it a lot. So if you like movies that talk about what happens when human beings are faced with protecting each other or protecting their money, then this is definitely the movie for you. Number 3 is a 1957 war movie, and that's The Bridge on the River Kwai. Directed by Sir David Lean and starring William Holden, Sir Alec Guinness, and Jack Hawkins. The Bridge over River Kwai tells the story of British POWs who are forced to build a bridge across the River Kwai for their Japanese captors, not knowing that the Allied forces are planning to destroy it at the same time. I mean, basically to say The Bridge on the River Kwai is a classic is just an understatement. This is a very famous film. Yeah, I know, I normally do the underrated, hidden gem kind of things, but man, this movie is very, very, very good. If you have not seen The Bridge on the River Kwai, this is one of those must-see films. It's an extremely complex movie for the time period. It's really like watching 2 movies at the same time. And there's also like 4 different stories going on at the same time also, which made this movie very unique for the time. Number 2 on this list is a movie that is actually considered to be one of the greatest movies ever made. In fact, it's number 61 on the list of greatest movies of all time by the American Film Institute. However, it wasn't always on that list. You see, Steven Spielberg felt that this movie had to be on the list because this movie is, in his mind, one of the greatest films ever made, but it wasn't on the list. So he contacted the American Film Institute and told them that they needed to include it on the list immediately. He didn't care if this meant that it was going to bump one of his movies off. He said, go ahead, take out Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Raiders of the Lost Ark, whatever one of my movies you want to knock off of the list, go right ahead and replace it with Sullivans Travels, 1941. Okay, first off, I don't know if that story's true or not. That is a legend. It's kind of like a little Hollywood legend that this happened. But I do know for a fact that the movie wasn't originally on the list, and then it mysteriously popped up unknowingly to the public. So, you know, you can say the story's legend or you can say it was a mistake, who knows. But what is Sullivans Travels, you might say? Well, this tells the story of the man Sullivan. You see, he is a director and he wants to make a movie called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which tells the story of Americans during the Depression. But this guy has known nothing but wealth and privilege his entire life, and he has no idea what it's like to live with the common man. So he decides to give up all of this wealth and privilege and to seek out on his adventures into the American Dust Bowl. Alright, so that sounds simple enough. Let's just say that things do not go according to plan. This movie is really, really good. It's extremely different for its time. The subject matter in this film is very dark and is considered to be one of the first dark comedies ever made. Is it funny? It's got some funny moments, but I wouldn't really necessarily call this movie an outright comedy. The movie does start off at a much lighter, much more fun tone, but then as the subject matter starts to continue and he starts to learn more about what it's like to live in the Depression era times, let's just say the movie's just not as funny as it could be. Okay, so I'm gonna lighten up the tone a little bit because I've had some pretty serious drama type films on this list. So you know what? I'm gonna cap this whole thing off with probably one of the funniest movies of its time period. Number one on my list is Auntie Mae from 1958. Auntie Mae is directed by Morton DaCosta and it's starring Rosalind Russell. Auntie Mae is the story of an orphan who goes to live with his wealthy but very eccentric aunt. But the executor of his father's estate has some other plans because the will stipulates that he has actual control over his education and needs. The themes in this movie were way before its time. The character Auntie Mae was this very bigger than life woman who just wanted to live her life to the fullest, and she wanted to make sure that all the people she cared about and loved also had the ability to live life to its fullest.
Live, that's the message.
Live?
Yes, life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death. Now, come on, Agnes, live.
Which is pretty much the philosophy of this film. Live life to its fullest. Some of the subject matter that this film tackles is just really a woman's place in the world and
Fighting the stigma of the unwed mother.
so really at its core, Auntie Mae is just a fun, loving, good-hearted person who just wants everybody to have a good time and live life to its fullest because we're only on this rock for so long, so we might as well have a good time while we're here. And you know what, guys? That also brings us to the end of another Film Geek video. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me a thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And another thing you can do, folks, is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.